It comes and goes. We're out here chasing a feeling. Up high, down low. We go from the floor to the ceiling.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. This is your host, Tara Martini, along with Becky McNattan. We are glad to have you listening as we live and share stories of mental health.
Yes. And Tara, today I am so excited for the show.
This is a big one.
Several months ago, a colleague of ours introduced me to a YouTube video that was created by Dove and highlighted the topic of self-perception. It's a longer video that people may have seen, some listeners may have seen. If you've watched it, awesome. For those of you who have not, I encourage you to do this. Simply search Dove Self-Perception Project and spend the minutes watching it in an entirety. It is fascinating.
It is.
As a brief summary, for people today, because we're talking about self-perception on the show today, it's a group of people who are total strangers to one another and are all asked to participate in creating self-portraits. They are in this room together, and one by one, they meet with a forensic sketch artist to have that artist draw people's faces as they describe themselves verbally. So get this, everyone. The sketch artist is separated from the individuals by a screen, cannot see them at all. He has only their answers to his questions as a guide for how to draw them. So he asks these questions, makes a sketch of their face, and then the individuals leave to be in this shared room with everyone else participating in the project. After that individual leaves, they invite another person from the room who's a total stranger to the person who was just drawn, and they ask that person to describe the face of the stranger. The forensic artist can't see this person either. They can only have their words to do the sketch. And so it gets at this concept of how someone views themselves in comparison to how others view them. Mm-hmm. Then, one by one, Tara, the sketch artist brings people back into the room and shows them the image that they created and the image that was created by the stranger's depictions. And this is where the video gets incredibly powerful. People see how differently and critically they view themselves compared to what others say. And it got me thinking, how does our self-perception compare to how others view us? And what would you say about this, Tara?
You are so right in that, one, everybody should watch it, and two,
yes,
it is so powerful. And I think it speaks to everyone's, honestly, inner child of...
Good point. Good point.
This is something we've all felt for so long, and it speaks to the heart of us, our inner child, our brokenness, our whatever it is, of how vastly different our perception of ourselves and how others perceive us, and how we're going to dive into that today.
Yeah,
and explore how that happens.
Right. And the video is seeing the images next to each other is striking. And I think causes everyone a sense of self-reflection on what are the things that we tune into about ourselves that other people don't notice even. Mm-hmm. And how the words that they use to describe themselves being so different from what these strangers use to describe themselves.
Well, and I think what I recall from the video, one woman in particular, and I tend to do this to myself all the time. If they said, describe yourself, I remember one woman saying, like, I have tired eyes.
Yes.
Bags under my eyes.
Yes.
And how we as women describe ourselves as, tired and saggy and, lines and things like that. Mm-hmm. But yet someone else may see us and think we have vibrant eyes and little wrinkles or lines. We view ourselves so worn.
Yes.
And tired.
Yes. And the descriptors, for those of you who watch the video or who have seen it, the descriptors that people use are absolutely paradoxical. They're like completely different. Mm-hmm. So today we're exploring the topic of self-perception, how we develop it, how we can be aware of it, and how we can challenge ourselves to notice the ways in which it impacts how we operate in our world. This is a big topic today. Super important. Right now, we're going to take a short commercial break, but stay tuned, everyone, as we talk through perceptions of self and how to develop awareness, self-awareness around who we believe ourselves to be. Thank you for listening to Feels Out Loud. We will be back in just a moment.
Express yourself. you see is danger, trying to find what you lost.
Welcome back to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. I am Tara Martini along with Becky McNattan. Let's dive right back into our discussion on self-perception.
I love this so much.
Me too, girl.
This kind of topic is my jam.
Yes.
To explore, process. I want to share with our listeners that many years ago, when I was in college getting my bachelor's degree in social work, I had a class on facilitating groups, and we got this assignment that took an in-depth look at perception. I was telling Tara, I wish everybody had to do this assignment. We had to complete a survey about ourselves and then had to ask 5 close people in our lives to fill out the same thing. And it was questions like 3 words to describe me. What are my strengths? How do I come across to others? What's it like to be around me? Things like that. And the people we asked to complete the questions for us had to mail this in to my professor. Yes, everybody, it was old school. We actually mailed this in. And then my teacher compiled the data for us and gave it to us in one class session. So this was a huge undertaking from the teacher, but gave us such a wealth of information that we shared with our class how we viewed ourselves. And then we also shared the compiled info on how people viewed us. And we had to share this with everybody.
That takes a lot of vulnerability.
A lot of vulnerability. And we looked for similarities and differences, and it was mind-bending. Truly, I still remember our processing sessions to this day on both the feedback that people heard about those questions. Sometimes that was hard for them to hear on how they were perceived by others and how that was different from how they saw themselves. So do you think the way you see yourself, Tara, is the way others see you? I'm putting you on the spot.
No,
okay.
I don't.
Okay.
No, I don't. I think, let me adjust that a little bit. I think I am getting better at learning to see myself more like others see me. But I think I have forever viewed myself differently than people have viewed me. And just like the Dove experience, I think I see myself possessing more negative traits and view myself in a more negative light than I think others around me view me in.
And I would guess that lots of our listeners, if they also ask themselves the question, do you see yourself the way others see you? They would maybe also say no. And from a space of self-criticality or the noticing of detail, or in the way that we're received. Maybe they wouldn't know.
Right. And I think part of that is it took me 46 years
sure.
of work on myself to say what I said a few seconds ago of I'm getting better at.
Yeah, even noticing that there's a difference.
Yes.
Which is part of what I valued so much about I was 20 when I did this assignment. I valued so much about the assignment at that time because even knowing that there is a difference is key. And how would you say it's shifted for you through your life then? Because you mentioned you're getting better. When do you think you started to become aware of how you saw yourself versus how others saw you?
Well, I think it starts when you first have a very, very large awareness of how others see you. And to me, that was in middle school, right? Where all of a sudden it's all consuming. You're very aware of how you are interacting with others, how you are viewed by others. And so that to me, then I automatically thought about how do I perceive myself and how are others perceiving me? And it was just a very big awareness early on because as much as I've grown, I think I've always had an early awareness, but I don't think I've really grown in that area of like learning to love myself and all those things and that self-awareness, like almost educating myself until the last, honestly, like 5 years. And that is such a sad thing to notice and to realize that it took that long. But I think it's that, as many women will say, getting comfortable with who you are in your own skin and valuing who you are And that takes a long time.
Yeah. And sometimes on the other side of that, realizing that we may come across to other people or the perception of us might not be something that's congruent with who we believe ourselves to be.
Exactly.
Someone might
Yeah.
perceive or receive us in a way that we don't necessarily like or enjoy. And hearing feedback about that can be really hard.
Really hard.
Why do you think, it's a very complicated question, but why do you think people are critical of themselves in ways that others aren't about them?
Because I always think we think the worst about ourselves. I
Mm,
think we as humans, as much as I hate to say it,
yeah.
have a tendency to think more negative about ourselves. I think a lot of us, hopefully, have a tendency to think more positive assumptions of others, but are so much more critical of ourselves.
Mhm.
And that is where we tend to go to first.
Yeah. And I love that you're saying that. It's a really good point, because there's the idea that what we focus on, we magnify as well.
Mhm.
And if we go to sort of a negative place about ourselves, or we have a predisposition to that, we're going to highlight the things that feel negative.
Mhm.
And in doing that, we make
Mhm.
them bigger. We maybe focus on those, and those could be physical traits even.
We do. And how many times, and I don't know the exact saying, but the common saying of how many times you will remember a time you were ridiculed, you're going to remember that forever.
Yeah.
A time you were complimented, you might be complimented 10 times, but that one time that someone, is unkind to you, you're going to remember that for a lot longer, even though it only happened once.
Mhm.
You're going to hold on to that. And then because that validates your self-criticism.
Right.
I think this of myself. Well, there we go. Therefore I am, because that one person told me, even though those 10 other people
Mhm.
went against that, I'm going to take with me that one negative thing someone said.
Yeah, and it's a really good point that that's part of even how we develop self-perception,
Mhm.
by the messages that we receive externally about us,
Mhm.
particularly those that might reinforce fears we have about us.
Yes.
So if we fear that we're the quiet one, or don't
Yes.
love that about ourselves, and hear from other people, you're so quiet, that's going to help us develop or create a self-perception.
Mhm.
So self-perception, everyone, is how we see ourselves. And it is ever changing. Tara just mentioned this. It flows through our whole lives, and might be different for how we see ourselves today versus how we saw ourselves many, many years ago. And I want to think about this for a moment. Just take a quick memory hop back to middle school, as Tara just mentioned.
Ooh, and everyone's like, do we have to?
We maybe don't.
Because that is literally the worst time for a lot of people.
Yes.
But
And
yes, we do. We have to take a hop back there.
And if you hop back there in your own mind, this is a time when everyone starts to become hyper aware, as you just mentioned, of how they come across to other people.
Mhm.
And we start to notice everything. But it doesn't necessarily stay that way. We grow up, we develop identity, sometimes even by high school, it's
Mhm.
different. And ideally start to put less pressure on ourselves, that every moment, because in middle school, every moment is absolutely critical to how we are viewed. And we are absorbing that all the time. But I've been thinking about, how often are we observant of ourselves in ways that other people do not even notice?
Right.
And I'm thinking about how noticing our flaws, our tone, or words we say. And do you have an example of this for you, Tara? I definitely have one for me.
Okay, you go first.
Okay.
Then I'll go.
Well, I'm probably joined by a few listeners out there who hold high expectations for themselves.
Yes, I would say there are probably a couple out
I
there.
100% fall in this category. And when I fall short of those, I spin on them. I absolutely spin on them. And I met a friend for coffee recently. And after I left, I realized I never asked them a question about something I had planned to. I went in saying I was going to ask this question, and then I left not doing it. We spent a lot of time talking about updates about my life, and I felt bad about not making it more about theirs. So in my spinning, I've grown.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to reach out to them and apologize. Earlier in my life, I would have just kept going with the spinning, but I reached out and apologized and said, I wish that I had asked them more about new things for them and not spent so much time on me. My friend helped me laugh about it. They actually responded with, I didn't even consider that. Becky, I didn't even
Wow.
see this.
Yeah.
They did not see the discussion between us as being mostly about me at all. But my self-perception is good listener. And so I analyze this interaction from very likely a unrealistic standard, very high expectation of what that would have looked like, being available only for the other person. So that's one for me.
It's a great example. Great example. And like you said, I think one that is very common that a lot of people can relate to. And I tried to think of one too for myself that I think a lot of people could relate to as well. And so for me, it is for my view of myself and self-perception, my phrase is the idea of I'm too much.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's what I hold true for myself.
Uh-huh.
Do others believe that? Maybe not,
Right.
but I believe they do. So, story is, and I'm going to be a little vague about this one, but I've recently entered the dating world, which is so fun as a single parent. And let me tell you, when you date, you enter the dating world, your self-perception, those statements that you declare as truth for yourself, those are loud as can be when you are on dates.
Oh.
So it's not just, oh, do I look cute? Do I have a wardrobe malfunction? It is, don't be too much. Don't be too much. Were you too much? You leave the date.
Beautiful point.
I was too much. Then going on a few dates with someone, it has taken everything in me not to ask that person, have I been too much? I have reflected with girlfriends after. I was talking to a girlfriend in particular, and she's like, how's it going with so and so? And I was like, it's really great. I'm worried that I'm too much. And to quote my dear friend, she said, Tara, if I were to describe you, words I would never use would be too much. Where would you get that? And I was shocked.
Yeah.
So shocked that it still is a truth I possess, that I am too much. But for her, and I've known her since freshman year of college.
Wow.
And it's something she said, I have no idea why you would think that.
Yeah.
But I still hold it as a truth.
And what, two examples of also people who were close to in our lives.
Yes.
Who is sort of mind-boggling.
Yes.
Tell us back, like, that's not a thing.
Correct.
At least how they see it. And,
right.
And it doesn't mean that our belief isn't still our belief.
Right.
But it sort of highlights back to us this kind of awe in what? So how can we know what we perceive about ourselves?
Right.
I want to get into that because we can talk about self-perception, but if people out there are saying, I don't know how I perceive myself compared to how others perceive me, we need to start with developing self-awareness. And so how do we do that? You can tune into what your self-perception is in lots of ways. Sometimes this is actually what people come to therapy for.
Right.
They want to learn more about both how they see themselves and how that comes across to others, because that impacts relationships, that impacts employment. So we can do this a lot of ways, but you and I are going to highlight two avenues today and things you can question and things you can do. And I want you to take away the things you can question, Tara.
Yeah.
Tell us the list and then we're going to talk about them.
Yes. So here we go. Things you can question. What words describe me, both positively and negatively? And I think that's an important thing to remember, both positive and negative.
Yes, because we don't want to be, when we're thinking about our self-perception, this sort of positivity slant. We did a show a few weeks ago on toxic positivity, where it's only these amazing things that wouldn't also be congruent with us, because if we tend to focus on the negativity or criticality, we need to be real, that we are whole people.
Well, we need to be authentic. What verb best describes me?
Okay.
What do I tell myself when I make mistakes? Oh, I think that's huge. How patient am I with myself? When I read that question, it was like, wow. I think if people are real, if they really answer that question authentically, it would be surprising.
Yeah, and if we even tuned into the dialogue that starts immediately when we make mistakes, that we actually are telling ourselves something. It's not just the mistake.
Right.
It's there's an entire conversation that begins to have we begin to have, including not letting it go.
Right. We're quite unkind to ourselves. What gifts and talents do I bring to the world around me? When was the last time I explored something new, especially something I wasn't good at? Ooh, that is, you really have to be okay being vulnerable. Do my actions show what I believe?
Okay.
How do I receive criticism or feedback? Do I respond to myself differently than I do others? I think that's such an important one because I think too that plays into the self-perception versus how others view me in that do I respond to myself differently than I do to others, right? Do I have self-compassion for myself? Um, or am I more critical?
Mhm.
Are my standards for myself different from my standards for others? Same kind of concept. How have I changed through the years? What is different about me? What is something I hide from others? Why do I do this? Why do I think, what do I think would change for me if I stopped hiding this?
Wow.
Girl, that could be a whole episode.
Yeah. And we could even say, what do I fear would change for
Mhm.
me if I stopped hiding this? Or what do I hope for what
Yeah.
would change? We could add an emotion in there.
Oh my gosh, fear and hope. When I feel something, do I share it? If not, how come? What are my top 3 values? And would people around me know that they are?
Mm.
Love that. That added, would the people around me know that they are?
Mhm.
What is it like to be around me?
Yeah.
Woo! What feedback do I get and what do I notice from others on this? What role does self-compassion play in my life?
Wow.
What are your thoughts about this list, my
Well,
dear?
I love this list. And of
Oh,
course I said earlier that this is my jam. For
yeah.
anybody who is wondering, questions to ask yourself to develop self-perception, as we said just a few minutes ago. Rewind this.
Mm.
Write every single one of these questions down that we just shared.
Yep.
It's a lot of them. Write about them. Talk to people about them. Have some conversations about them. These are the things that I have big bias, but humans want to engage in dialoguing about with one another.
Yes, they do. But also, don't rush through them. Like,
Don't rush through them.
spend a day on a question, right?
Yes.
Do a journal entry on one question.
Hmm.
Really take time to just focus and really just, dive in
Right.
and explore.
You bring up a really good point because one thing that would be cool on what verb best describes me.
Mhm.
Write that down. Write a word down. Come back to it a week later and see if you'd say the same word. That's where
Yeah.
you're getting at. Don't rush this.
Mhm.
Be patient with yourself about how self-perception morphs
Mhm.
or is fluid and changes. There were so many of these questions that stood out to me that when you and I kind of paused about when was the last time I explored something new, especially something I wasn't good at.
Oh, yeah.
I think about the time that I took several coworkers curling, and of
Yes.
who isn't good at curling is pretty much society. But it was this sort of great awareness building
Equalizer.
with all of us who were there on
Mhm.
everybody hadn't done it before
Correct.
other than you,
Yeah. I was
because
the
you were
only
there.
one. Yep.
And you could see the discomfort
Mhm.
across the board. That does take like what am I telling myself right now?
Right.
This is self-perception. This is how we do that. When I immerse in something that maybe I'm not that good at, or I'm pretty sure I know I'm not going to be good at, and I
Mhm.
do it anyway, that's how we begin to understand who we are.
For sure. And what to me was so fascinating was how people's bodies and self responded to that state of
Yes.
uncomfortable. Some
Yes.
people got angry, some people got frustrated, some people took it and the way they responded was just silliness, like they just embraced it.
Mhm.
It was fascinating to see how people really just responded to, hey, I'm not good at this, because people like to avoid things they're not good at.
We
Because
definitely
it's
do.
uncomfortable.
Right. And it may highlight self-perception. It may
Right.
highlight the things that we are worried about
Right.
ourselves.
Right.
The things that we've already been telling us, which is why it's one great tool, one great question into what is it that I think about myself. And so I want to highlight things we can do then, because that whole list, it's long,
Right.
are things we can think about and maybe things we can talk about too. That's awesome. Things we can do. So the first one, everybody, is notice your actions. You don't have to change them, but notice them. Become aware of how are you acting and behaving in the world around you, and interpret what you see yourself doing. This might give you insight about your emotional experience, which is key to our self-perception. It helps us identify what are we saying in any given moment about us. And I want to give an example because it might be a little hard to understand this. I was recently talking with someone about their sister, and they were sharing the really awesome things about the relationship for them and how much they loved their sister. And I found myself wanting to leave the room.
Mm.
So just noticing my actions, I became very aware in the moment of what is going on for me. I wanted to leave the room. I didn't want to hear the cool things about what this person was saying. And I wanted to change the topic immediately. But from noticing my actions, and this was all momentary, like very instantaneous, noticing my actions, I realized I was jealous. I realized that I've never had a sister biologically and didn't know what it feels like to be close like that with a sister relationship, but I've always wanted it.
Right.
And
And
so,
that came out.
yes, so I could connect with my emotions in the moment. And this is what's critical, and this is why it helps develop self-perception. Our actions can tell us a lot about our internal experience and then what we think as a result. What are we meaning making about us as a human being based on those emotions? And so, secondary to noticing our actions, and this can be anything, literally just what you're doing, noticing what you do, is notice your words. And I'm a lover of words.
I was just going to say.
Oh, an absolute lover
Girl,
of
this
words.
is you.
But how many times as a therapist, I tell people, if we want to develop a sense of self-awareness, what things do you find yourself saying during a day? And it's almost like, let's do a little experiment and let's take stock of things that come out of your mouth on a daily basis. And not that you need to change them, but let's just notice them. And everybody at home, you could start this today. You could start just thinking about taking stock of and tuning into the things you say out loud. Our words are a constant reflection of our perspective.
They are.
And I would guess, you didn't say this earlier, Tara, but your own self-criticality probably comes out in the words you say out loud.
Oh, for sure.
In the way that if somebody says, "Oh, I love your sweater," you're like, "It looks kind of baggy today," or "I wore it 3 days ago and it's still not washed." Those are the things that likely our self-perception is in what we're saying out loud.
Which is hilarious that you just said that, because what's something that I work with clients all the time on is accepting compliments, right? And saying, and working on that, and they're making a ton of progress, and yet I'll be the person who they'll be like, "I like your sweater today," and I'll be like, "Oh, well, I'm feeling really frumpy today."
Right.
And I think, it's something that therapists are just amazing at,
Well, and we all, as you said,
Yes.
it's probably human
We're human.
condition that we
Exactly.
all have this, and noticing the things about ourselves from a space of hyper-attunement.
But just to pay attention to, like you said, is that idea of what are the words you're saying out loud, and also what are the things you're thinking
Yes.
throughout the day.
Yes.
Are they particularly negative about yourself? And how often are we really speaking positive things about ourselves? Are we our own beautiful coach, saying like, "I've got this, you can do it," because I guarantee we're doing that for others.
Yes, exactly. So another thing you can do, and I really love this one, think of 5 life events that have shaped who you are today. Just 5. Write them down and then ask yourself both why they are important. And this is the biggie, everybody, how you think they shaped you. This will help you be more aware of how you see yourself based on what's happened in your life. Bonus points to anybody who also says, maybe solicit some feedback from people in their world of how do you see that shaping me? If we are talking about life events. The 4th one is consider when you feel most like you. Where are you and what are you doing? So, as you're sitting listening to the show right now, please reflect on the moments where you feel most like you. Has it been recently? And then ask yourself, what are the details about that? What am I doing? Who's there? Who am I responding to? That's going to tell you some things about you and your perspective about you.
I will tell you for number 4. So last night when I was looking at this, and I literally took my notes out of the notes app, and I wrote down, because we're all on a journey, right? So I felt like I haven't really been myself the last several years. I took it out and I physically wrote down, what are the times that I have felt most like myself?
I love
And so
that.
you inspired me to do that. And it was mind-blowing
Yes.
to think of back to those times. And what a beautiful reminder for myself
Uh-huh.
when I'm not feeling like myself to go back and look at those and be like, hey, self, you're still there.
Yes, exactly. And that actually kind of leads into, in terms of self-awareness, what is the self? Reflect about your roles in life. So things like parent, friends, teacher, sibling, child, caregiver, coworker, family member, anything. You can even write them down. Who are you, though, when you are not the roles? I want you to think, everybody, and this is deep thinker Becky getting involved, the space is in between those roles. What makes you you when you aren't embodying the tasks? Do you have an answer? And if you don't have an answer, some of those questions might help you get at it, but the self is a way bigger portion of us than the roles that we embody.
I think a lot of listeners, you just made them think, I don't think I am anything without those roles. You just made them realize for the first time, wait, am I supposed to be something without those roles? Because that has defined them for so long.
Right. And the last one is take into account your mood. How we perceive ourselves changes with our mood. Think about it. If someone said, describe yourself in 5 words when you are incredibly bitter versus when you're full of joy, you're going to come up with different things. So this is where self-perception does shift. If you've had a really bad day, that's going to be a different answer than when you're feeling like life is amazing. So I want to talk about self-perception. This is an assessment that you and I came up with that is just literally you and me, Tara. 3 ways. If you really want to understand how you perceive you, we came up with a couple of ideas. And the first one was to get a piece of paper. All right, so listeners, if you have one, get a piece of paper, number it 1 to 10. Write 10 statements that you believe to be true about you. It can be anything, but they need to be things that you would say are true. And after you write these things, these 10, I want you to do 2 things. 1, look at them and see if you can find themes. So are there patterns in what you wrote? If you said, I love people, I offer support when I can, I jump into anything without caring about the impact to me. If these are things that you believe to be true, you might connect these to a self-perception of being a helper. So noticing patterns helps us understand how we see ourselves. Then I want you to do number 2, which is really hard, everybody. I want you to write true or false before each statement you created and hand the piece of paper to a close person in your life. Ask them to circle true or false on if they agree with a statement about you. This will help you identify if how you view you is how others view you. And the more vulnerable you are in your statements that are true, the more insight you'll gain about self-perception versus external perception.
I mean, people are about to do a deep dive.
This is a hard
themselves. Yes. That is a powerful task.
And if the self statement that is true is I am awful, if the statement is something that you very much believe, you're going to learn the criticality versus external perception.
Yeah.
Take the second one, Tara.
Next. I'm still caught up on that first one. I was like, I'm just thinking to myself, if someone then said false to the I am awful, then how does one go about, right, unlearning, like, wow.
Yeah.
Like
the differences.
Because you know that person's going to sit and go, oh my gosh, how could you feel that way?
Right.
Right. So next one, you're going to take a piece of paper and write at the top, the world knows who I am. The world knows who I am. Now you're going to make 2 columns on the paper. In one column, write yes. In the other column, write no. You're going to create a list on each side. So below the yes and below the no, of things you do or don't do and actions you take or don't take that show the world how you see yourself.
That the world knows who you are. I mean, this is big.
This is,
This is, and I love that you said before, please be patient with yourself in this. This is not something to do in 5 minutes. We're
No.
handing people these sort of assessments, but for thoughtful reflection over the course of time.
Yes. And you can come back to it, right? Like you can start the column
Yes.
work and then come back to it.
Right.
Because we also know life has things you need to get to.
Yes. Any of these, any of the
Mhm.
questions, any of the things we can do, these are meant to be over the course of time. Yes, you can
Mhm.
start them, put them down. Things might get a little raw for you, put it away for a
Mhm.
little bit. So the last one, if you love art, remember my story from college that I started this whole
Yep.
conversation about? Well, here's what we did. We took that data from the surveys. We had people fill out about us and then the things that we used for a project. We took a paper grocery bag, and on the outside, we wrote words and phrases. We could even have pictures from magazines and such to highlight how the world sees us. And then we took pieces of paper and wrote words that describe who we truly are or who we are on the inside that the world might not see. We talked about congruence between the inside and outside of our paper bags,
Wow.
both literally and figuratively. Try this yourself. It is a powerful exercise. Even ask other people to help you create this, especially the outside part. And then think about how the inside of your paper bag either matches or doesn't match with the outside. And I think it highlights the sense of self-perception versus external perception. It also highlights, well, what do I want to do about that?
Mhm.
Are there layers of this of similarity or alignment? Are there parts of this that bother me?
Right.
And what would it look like if I shared more of the inside of my paper bag
Mhm.
with people in my world, and how would that change the outside of the paper bag? Because
Right.
I do think sometimes we fear that it might,
Right.
or we sort of worst case scenarios about that. Thoughts, Tara?
Oh my goodness. Well, to go off of what you literally just said is to reference 3 and 2 is the whole piece of, okay, then what, right?
Yeah.
Where going back to that example of I am awful and then true or false, and someone says false,
Yeah.
it's someone is literally saying, you are not this awful person. But then what do you do with that, right? Because how do you unlearn it? And
Right.
so it's this idea of, okay, we're working on self-perception and how is my view of myself different than others perceive me? Okay, we're doing this work, we're doing these activities. Well, now what? That is where, this can open up and provide an opportunity for wonderful dialogue and exploration
Mhm.
with a family member, with a partner, with so many other people, with your therapist.
Yeah.
Maybe it is that you don't have a therapist, and this work that you're doing, whether it's you're kind of brainstorming in the car as you're listening because you're not at home, so you don't have a piece of paper, is causing you to go, wow. Because what we say about therapy, and we'll talk about it in our next episode, is you don't need an emergency or crisis to start therapy. It can also just be about self-exploration.
Yep.
You could start therapy to work on something like self-perception.
Yes.
And so this could be your catalyst for getting going and exploring. Now, okay, I get it. They put false. Now that's really making me think about, what do I do now if I still believe, yes, I am horrible?
Right.
Um,
Yeah. And your example of I am too much
Yeah.
that we listed earlier in the show, that might be a self-statement. That's an example of a very vulnerable one. Your good friend highlighted back to you, she would have said false.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. And being able to, as you said, meaningful dialogue, you can have a conversation about that.
mhm.
Ask some questions. You and I talk about compassionate curiosity all the time.
Yes, we do.
Maybe we want to practice some curiosity about asking people, well, then what do you see? And
Mhm.
how do you see that? So much to think about here.
So much.
We are headed to a commercial break. I have so many things to think about. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk through our listener questions, Tara. Feels Out Loud will process your questions and thoughts in just a moment.
Stranger, you don't know this right. All you see is danger. Express yourself.
We are back again with Feels Out Loud, and this part of the show is where we talk through questions from you all, our listeners. If you have a question related to mental wellness, sharing feelings, or our topics for each week that you would like us to process through, please visit our website at becomingtogethermn.com and find the Feels Out Loud page to submit a question directly, or email us at contact@becomingtogethermn.com. Of course, follow us on social media as well. We really do want to hear from you and what you are wondering about.
And I want to say thank you to the listeners who have sent in questions about how we perceive ourselves and the impact that this has on mental wellness. This is a vulnerable topic.
Very.
We're opening ourselves up to, as I mentioned earlier in the show, spaces of rawness here, even being honest with ourselves about what we actually think. So lots of gratitude to people. We picked one question today that I feel like synthesizes a lot of what we heard. And this was a person who said, I'm pretty judgmental about myself. In fact, I don't think the world sees me at all how I see myself. But I don't often share it with anyone because I get statements about how what I think about myself isn't true. How do we change our self-perception? And this was a poignant question.
Right.
I think one that either people see facets of themselves in or they fully see themselves in this. People say kind of minimizing statements like, oh, that's not true.
Mhm.
And not from the true or false place, like what we were talking about in the
Right.
last segment, from a not like I want to engage with you if that's not how I see you, but tell me more.
Mhm.
Like, don't talk about that.
Dismissive,
Mhm.
almost. Yes.
Yeah, great word. And so how do we change our self-perception? Huge question here. I mean, Tara and I are just highlighting the learning that we have, or that's self-awareness. That's tuning into what we're saying to ourselves. The unlearning of that is a long-term process.
It is.
And so I would say to this listener, I think the first step in developing a change in self-perception is saying maybe two truths can be the same exist at the same time.
Mhm.
So let it be true that you feel the way you do about you. Let it also be true that someone else can feel something different about you or perceive you differently. That the idea isn't to reconcile one of those and power play back and forth of
Right.
which one's right. That maybe it isn't the only truth.
They can exist together.
And that at least creates a sliver of the way I see myself might not be the only way that exists. It
Mhm.
isn't that other people have it wrong and I have it right.
Right.
It's that they might see something differently than me, and there might be two realities happening.
Mhm.
What do you say, Tara?
I think that is so true in that I think we are a society where it is we are right or we are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
In that, particularly if you look at self-perception, it's I am bad. Oh, I see you as a good person. Okay, well, one of us is right and one of us is wrong, but both can exist. And if anything, just allowing yourself to go, okay, I can still think what I want about myself,
Mhm.
but if you can just take a moment to pause and say, can I at least allow myself, give myself a little grace to take a little bit of time and space for what that person believes to be true of me?
Right. It's this idea of maybe moving outside yourself and seeing you from a different angle.
Yes.
Kind of like, oh, I'm maybe going to stand where they are standing and look
Yes.
at me and see how I might think about that too.
And I think if you take that approach versus let me give a little more space for that person and it to explore their perception versus I guess I have to prove myself wrong for mine, then you'll maybe allow a little bit more space and a little bit more space and a little bit more space. And if you work that direction, that can have a greater impact than, oh, I just have to prove myself wrong.
Right.
Everyone's saying I'm wrong.
Right. I love those thoughts. And wow, we're at the end of our show.
We are.
Already for today. I thank you for listening this morning, everyone. This has been amazing. Join us next week as we talk through more emotion-focused topics. And in the week ahead, be kind to yourself. Remember that connection fosters wellness. And everyone, your voice is one that the world around you needs to hear. Share yourselves, friends.
We get back up and try again. Some do, some don't. Some will, some won't.